Greetings everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm your host Captain Ryan. Today's YouTube video comes to us from Derp Amber. And Derp is playing in the Tier 5 brightly colored and annoyingly voiced ARP Congo. Wargaming finally fixed the replay bug that was preventing ARP ships from being properly displayed with all of their glorious brightly colored camo. So it's wonderful that we're able to see it. Now, the ARP Congo is, just as I said, it is a clone of the standard Congo on the tech tree line, so if you don't have an ARP ship, if you're joining us a little bit too late, don't worry. The ARP ships were event ships. They were rewarded for completing certain tasks in the game. Unlike their high school fleet counterparts, the captains on these ships are unable to transfer over to standard Japanese ships and vice versa. So they can't be used as trainers or retrainers, and they really can't be used beyond XP, credit, and captain experience mill machines. The other difference behind the ARP ships versus the standard are, of course, the camouflages. And don't ask me how, but these camos, as brightly colored as they are, provide the same concealment bonuses as the standard camouflages. Now, the Congos have a couple of wonderful advantages going for them in comparison to other Tier 5 battleships. Number one, they're fast. These ships can easily get up close to 30 knots. Possibly 30 knots. It's been a while since I've played them, which makes them much faster than their counterparts in the US or the German line. And they have the gun range. Unlike their US and German counterparts, the Congo has the ability to have a scout fighter or scout spotter aircraft. When the spotter is launched and it's up, I mean, look at the gun range right now on the minimap, basically covering the entire map. When that spotter goes up, you are covering the entire map. This leads a lot of players to sit at the back of the map and try and snipe with this ship, which is doable. You certainly have the range, especially by comparison to your other Tier 5 counterparts. But it's not always the best because you only have 4 14-inch gun turrets. So you've got 8 total shells going out, and the dispersion at range can be a little bit off. Their penetration values at range, not always the best either. The Congo does have the misfortune of being a fast battleship, of originally being a battle cruiser. Now, it was up armored, but that lack of armor, which gives it its speed, does mean that if you find yourself broadside onto somebody, odds are they're probably going to citadel you. And if you find yourself broadside onto a cruiser, especially at point-blank range, they're probably going to citadel you. The other disadvantage that the Congo has is that its gun rotation is painfully slow. And I do mean painfully slow. Even the US ships feel like they have slightly better turret rotations. Now, Derp Amber finally scores his first big hit of the game, nailing that Aoba with a nice fat citadel. Doesn't quite get the kill on him. RNGesus seems to be trolling Derp in this game nearly as much as RNGesus has been trolling me this month. Now, that cruiser is very, very low health, and I'm actually surprised that other people aren't shooting at him. When you find yourself in this situation, if a battleship takes a massive shot like that and drops, especially on a cruiser, somebody's health down, it's best to begin focusing fire and finishing them off. Now, Derp has his div mate up in the little Russian destroyer there, who is taking pot shots at that Aoba, and he is in fact going to finish off that cruiser because he can. And the enemy team actually does score the first blood here, which is kind of surprising, but it's immediately followed by Derp's div mate finishing off that Aoba. Now, briefly, the enemy carrier was spotted and he was reversing, so Derp gets shots out there and manages to citadel him. Those shots coming in right from above on soft targets, definitely going to penetrate, definitely going to put some hurt on. And there, that carrier, you see how much health he's got left. He's probably rethinking his life choices about staying at the spawn until it's too late. If you're in a carrier, you can't be doing this. Derp is starting to take some hits from some of the other battleships. He's got that carrier highlighted yet again. So he goes ahead and he takes shots there. He takes a big ol' hit, does get citadeled there. That's a little unfortunate for him as he turns broadside to try and run, and all of his shots unfortunately miss. So you can see there how much damage he is taking. Again, that falls into that lack of armor. Even when you're angled, the ship just doesn't have the armor, but it's got reasonable bow armor if it's angled at an extreme angle. The stern, not so much. However, with the speed, as mentioned before, you can pretty much take your ship, decide, I'm going to run away, and then just run away. Unless the enemy is in an equally fast battleship, there's not much they can do to stop you from just running away. And since you have the gun range, especially with that spotter up, well, you're going to be able to not only outrun them, but outrange them very shortly thereafter. Derp still has that carrier in his sights, and if he can finish off that carrier, that's going to give his team an advantage, because that means no more planes out and about spotting. Unfortunately, those shots fall just short. Now, this is a Bogue, and the Bogue does not move very quickly, so trying to figure out exactly how much lead to give this ship can be a little difficult. He finds himself broadside on here as shots come in, but he slammed on his brakes, and those shots went a little bit forward. Surprisingly enough, that Bogue still alive, unbelievable, but Derp's divmate does manage to secure the Bogue as well. So Derp is basically softening up all these targets so that his buddy in the destroyer can finish them off with a couple of well-placed high explosive rounds. Derp does not have a lot of HP left at this point, and you can see here he's turning away. He's headed back toward the map border. I don't generally recommend getting your ship turned around like this because the slow turret rotation, but in this particular case, what Derp's trying to do is stay as far away from the combat zone as he can so he can start repairing that health. This is one of those few occasions where if somebody calls you out, if you're in a battleship, they call you out for hiding in the back, you just tell them to, hey, take a look at my HP pool. I'm back here because I need to recover some health. In fact, that's something that I'll say if I'm playing on a team in a battleship and I've taken a lot of hits and I turn away from an engagement, I'll tell people in chat I have to go hide. I have to go run, hide, and recover some HP, and I will be back. Now, Derp is taking shots out at a cruiser that was briefly spotted up here. Again, doesn't manage to land the hits necessary to do any damage. The dispersion on the Congo, not always the best. I feel like the New York gives you better dispersion because you have that extra gun turret, and of course, the Germans as well. Then again, it's also a Cleveland, and the Cleveland is notoriously hard to citadel no matter who you are, just because of the way the citadel on the Cleveland sits, even though they fixed that. Still, Derp manages somehow, someway, to find the citadel on that Cleveland and puts the hurt on him. The enemy team is currently up on points and up on ships. It is a standard battle mode. And so long as they have the ship's advantage, that's going to give them that points advantage, and they could be using that advantage to push an attack, but you'll notice that the majority of the enemy team is concentrated at their base. They're very much in a defensive mode, and what that means is that Derp's team is going to be able to sweep in from both sides and just concentrate fire on top of them from both directions, honestly, since they're all bottled up back there. Now, they can use their destroyers effectively and get up there and just start wrecking them with torpedoes, because it is a very target-rich environment. Derp manages to secure his first kill, taking out that Cleveland with yet another citadel, surprisingly enough, and equaled out the teams, but of course the enemy team manages to kill yet another one and equals that out as well. So that's going to keep them in the lead for now. And now Derp is looking for viable targets. There's an enemy Fuso off in the distance here. He's broadside on. Derp's guns are almost loaded, and it's looking like this is going to be the best target option because he is broadside on. Now Derp is being detected, and that could be a serious problem if that Fuso wants to take shots at him, because that Fuso has more 14-inch guns than Derp does, and they hurt when they hit. Now Derp's team still trying to find a way to push here, and they're not having any luck. The defensive strategy of this team is managing just barely to hang on to the lead. Derp sees a destroyer up here. He takes shots out, manages to miss that destroyer. If you're in a Congo, you're shooting at a destroyer, that's going to be a real hit and miss situation. In this case, that was a pun. And unless you have to, you shouldn't really shoot at destroyers beyond 10 kilometers. Now, if they're within 10 kilometers, and especially if they're within their torpedo range of you, yeah, absolutely. Target, focus down those destroyers, because that is a direct threat to you. But otherwise, find something else. Find a better target to shoot at, because your shots are probably going to miss. Even if you do hit him, you might only get an over-penetration. You're going to leave him on very low health, and if he's got adrenaline rush, well, you just made him even scarier as a potential threat with his reloads. Derp's got a very low health New Mexico up here, and this New Mexico is kind of pushing here, so Derp gets his shots out here. Now that New Mexico is bow on. He can do some pretty good bow tanking, and as you can see there, all those shots manage to ricochet or fall just short. The New Mexico not very fast, so something you got to think about when you're fighting against one that's coming straight onto you is how far forward of that bow do you want to shoot. If you aim a little bit higher, you can land hits at that superstructure, and from the bow into the superstructure, there's a lot of superstructure to hit. Yeah, they're going to be over penetrations, but hey, 8 shell over penetrations is still better than having a bunch of ricochets. Now, Derp still running away here. He doesn't have any repairs left, and this is a serious problem in any battleship, because he's still getting pecked on by that destroyer in the back, who's trying to set him on fire, and that could be dangerous in its own right, but he's also got battleships in the back there that are also trying to peck at him. And their shots, well, they hurt. Even the over-penetrations hurt. And Derp does not have a lot of health left. He finds himself a broadside battleship that's sitting right between that island gap there, and he manages to land some hits there. No citadels on him. Of course, wouldn't that have been absolutely nice? But you see this battleship, he's just kind of chilling there, slowly backing up, slowly going forward, not really helping himself in any situation, but he does return fire, and boy, does that fire hurt. I mean, just look how much HP Derp has. He can't possibly go any lower, can he? Yeah. Derp, sitting in the back here, is finding himself in a very bad situation as that battleship continues to send shots out at him. And as he continues to do so, those shots landing, leaving him on even lower health. I mean, holy crap. Look how much health Derp has. He has nothing for his battleship HP. Basically, his crew is probably looking to abandon ship at this point. Go ahead, get overboard, drop the boats down, and disappear off into the sunset, because we are done. But apparently ships on the enemy team didn't realize that that gap between those islands there is not necessarily the best place to sit, as Derp finds himself a cruiser who's decided to do the same thing. Now that cruiser, of course, he gets motoring very quickly and does avoid all of those shells. If you find yourself shooting at a cruiser in this situation, you really have to pay attention to the stacks. If you can see the smoke and how fast it's moving either center, forward, or behind the ship, you can really determine how quickly an enemy player is going. If they're moving super fast, if they've just started moving, are they speeding up? And that really does help you figure out how much lead you want to give on a ship. Now Derp's not having any luck here landing hits on that cruiser, but his team is, and if you notice, his team has managed to drop the enemy team down, and there's very low health ship up there that doesn't have much in the way of options. He's getting pecked on there, and he's probably, yep, going to die right there. So that leaves the enemy team with 1 destroyer and 3 other ships. Well, Derp's team has 2 destroyers and several other ships, although Derp's really not in any kind of position to get into the fight. He's got no heals left, and nearly any hit he takes will probably kill him. So he's playing it smart, sitting very far in the back here, and launches his scout to get those over the island shots. Something that I see a lot of battleship players forget is that scout isn't just used to extend the range, but it gives you that top-down view over the top of islands. And if you can get that view, it really does make it a lot easier to see what's going on around you, what the enemy's doing, where they're hiding. Can you get shots off here? And there's that battleship, yet again, still just kind of sitting in one spot. But you'll notice he's kind of moving forward there. So these shots might not hit if he continues to speed up and go behind that island. Now they have a very low health cruiser over there as well, and with any luck, several shots from somebody will hit and finish him off. Derp manages to earn his high caliber award, having managed to do another 10,000 or so damage to that battleship. That cruiser finally meets his end and is finished off, and that's going to put Derp's team solidly in the lead as the enemy destroyer pops up, is very, very low health, and at least one of their enemy battleships is also fairly low health as well. And Derp continues to put rounds downrange onto this guy, and he's having middling success here. As you can see, the shots not quite managing to connect all the time, and the shots that are connecting are only getting over penetrations. So he's not able to finish off that battleship. Now, he's far enough back here that he can fire pretty much in stealth. Yes, I know stealth firing is still a thing, much to the chagrin of many a battleship player dealing with things like Atlantas and destroyers. But you gotta remember, if there's nothing in that line of sight, when you fire, your detection range will drop back down. Now, Derp has decided he's done sitting in the back, sitting as far away as he is. There's no point being back here anymore, because the enemy team is so low health. He's going to go ahead and he's going to push up here. Who knows? He might be able to get a suicide run in and take out one of the enemy ships before he finishes. The enemy destroyer up there, very low health, almost as low health as Derp here, and somehow I have a feeling that he might not survive any kind of engagement there. You can see shots coming in. Derp doesn't have his scout plane up yet, but he knows that his shots will clear the island, targeting that battleship there, so he gets them out, and he's going to see if they manage to connect. Those shots going out, they look pretty good, and he does manage to connect on the ship, but they're all shatters. Come on. Battleship shells shattering on a battleship. Yes, they did hit the stern there, but I'm surprised they didn't ricochet. They just shattered apart on the deck. So that kind of gives you some idea of what the limitations of these guns can end up being. Now, if Derp's team really wants to secure their victory right now, what they need to do is they absolutely need to finish off that destroyer, and they do manage to do that. So that's going to give them 100% uncontested ability to go in and molest those battleships. They don't have to worry about torpedoes coming in from, well, anybody at this point, since there's no carrier left on the enemy team as well. You can see here, his team is just now starting to make their push onto the enemy base. But look at the amount of time left. There's less than a minute here. The enemy team really has no point, no way of surviving, and that Fuso just took a big hit from the carrier, very low health. So even if they did manage to kill Derp, it's not going to be enough at this point, since the points are firmly in Derp's team's favor. Now, Derp earned himself a Dreadnought, and rightly so. He earned himself a high caliber. He only got 1 kill in that game, but he did 116,000 damage. And he showed us why it's important to pay attention to your own situation and to the battlefield. And if you've got to, turn around, keep your guns in the fight, turn around and go hide somewhere and get that HP back up. But do so by keeping your guns in the fight. Ends up top of the team for XP earned there, which is a pretty respectable amount. And no surprise there, given that he earned that high caliber award. Anyway, that's it for today's YouTube video, folks. If you like the video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment down below. If you'd like to get semi-regular channel news and updates, as well as my live streaming schedule, you can do so by liking and following me on Facebook. If you'd like to help support me in the channel, as well as gain some additional supporter perks, you can do so by becoming my supporter on Patreon. If you've got a replay like this one that you'd like to see featured on my YouTube channel, you can send it to my email. And if you'd like to watch me play World of Warships, among other games, as previously mentioned, live, you can do so by following me on Twitch. You can find the links for all of those in the video description down below. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Rye, signing off.